Good morning, Boker Tov. It's good to be back after the summer. I trust all of you had a very pleasant and healthy summer. Parshat Teitzei is this coming week's Parsha, and the theme is the spirits of the law. In the Torah, in Deuteronomy 23:3, we state, an illegitimate person, namely a mamzer, shall not enter the congregation of the Lord. Even his 10th generation shall not enter in the congregation of the Lord. One of the most difficult and perplexing biblical laws to comprehend is that of the mamzer, a product of an adulterous and incestuous sexual liaison who may never enter into a marriage relationship with another Jew. We can understand why the adulterers themselves are forbidden from marrying each other, even after they become divorced from their previous spouses. And they who showed such disdain and disregard for the exclusive and sacred marital relationship by betraying the most marital partners did not enter together into matrimony, since God has sanctified the nation of Israel by means of the nuptial canopy and marital ritual of Kiddushim, the initial blessing, along with the blessing of the wine and at the wedding ceremony. The very glory of the Jewish people has always been Taharat HaMishpacha, the purity of our family life. But why has the Torah imposed such a harsh punishment on the innocent child, born of such adulterous act? The child has done nothing wrong, and even in the Torah, it states clearly, Deuteronomy 24:16, that children shall not die for the sins of the parents and vice versa. Lo yumsu avos abonim, abonim lo yumsum alavos. In order to understand the meaning of behind this law, I believe that it is necessary to understand the difference between the written law, the Bible, which is called by the sacred Zohar, the harsh law, Dina, the Takva, and the oral law, the Talmud and Responsa, which is called by the Zohar, the soft and compassionate law, Dina de Raviza. In exposing these two corpuses of legal doctrine, one discovered that this legal doctrine is hinted at both in Maimonides' Mishnah Torah, Laws of Blows and Damages, 3:1-3, and the Guide for the Perplexed, Part 3, Chapter 41. It is quite important to note that the written law without the oral law does not constitute Judaism. Even a cursory glance of the Bible, the written law, will reveal the many instances in which capital punishment is called for. The Bible declaring that the offender must surely die, and it's certainly to be stoned by death, Matos, Tamus, Sakoli, Saker. The oral law, however, greatly limits these extreme punishments, insisting that a trial cannot take place only if two knowledgeable and objective witnesses give testimony that they saw the actual crime being perpetuated. Circumstantial evidence is not admitted in a Jewish courtroom for capital punishment, and took the opportunity to give proper warning to the assailant, determining that he was aware of the actions he was about to commit and its punitive consequences. Hence, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon both declared that if they had been on the Sanhedrin, no human being would have been tried for a capital crime. And Anastasia, they declare that if a culprit was put to death once in 70 years, the culprit was put to death once in 7 years, the court would be declared a murderous court. Mishnah in Makos 110. It is most interesting to note that the state of Texas in the United States has put to death over 250 culprits in its history. The difference in punitive attitude becomes clear when we remember the different purposes guiding each legal code. The entire Pentateuch is heard each year by every Jew who attends Sabbath services, so that the goal of the biblical reading each week is to inform and inspire the consciences, first and foremost, of the Jewish attender, inspire them to understand the critical importance of the ethical and moral actions. The oral law, however, which sets down the actual punishment, must mediate the law with life, taking into account that, God forbid, if the wrong person is put to death for a crime he did not commit, there is no judicial recourse to bring him back to life. Hence, the oral softens and even sweetens the penalties, even bending over backwards to be lenient with the defendant. For example, the written law means warnings, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Since the only way one can understand the enormity of this crime of taking out a person's eye is for him to have his eye removed. The oral law then explains that since different people have different levels of eyesight, and some professions require greater use of the eye than others, the oral law stipulates monetary remuneration rather than the removal of the eye. The Bible, since it wished to inspire Jews and to respect and protect the moral integrity of their marital union, teaches that if one degrades the marital fidelity, the products of such a liaison will never be able to enter a marital union. However, the oral law made it virtually impossible to have a practical instance of mamzerut. Not only would there have to be two witnesses who gave warning to the transgressors, the transgressing couple, prior to their act of adultery, which would have to take place in front of two witnesses. But the halachic presumption is always that since the majority of the sexual acts come from the husband, every child is presumed to be the child of the husband. And since paternity tests are not 100% accurate, they are not sufficient to proof of adultery. When the case of a woman whose husband went overseas 12 months before she gave birth was brought before the religious court in Talmudic times, the judge declared the child to be kosher, assuming that the fetus had gestated in the woman's womb for 12 months. And in a similar incident, they ruled that the husband had secretly returned for a night unbeknown to anyone. In modern times, I do not know of a single case of mamzerut from which Chacham Ovadia Yosef and Rav Moshe Feinstein did not find a positive solution, enabling the person in question to marry into the Jewish community. Unfortunately, the present religious establishment today is not as bold as the decisors of the previous generation. Shabbat Shalom.